Rachel Madgett live from Palm Desert, California.
Oh, okay.
That's right. I was saving that for everybody. I took a little journey out to the desert for the weekend. It's good. It's a good little mental health thing to do every once in a while. I'll be honest with you. Now I understand why both you guys make this little oasis to the desert often as well too, because this is really nice and comfortable out here. I like all the
It's
space.
not the weekend anymore, Mike.
Well, Monday's
Okay,
like it's long weekend. That voice right there, you know her as 99 World Cup winner, Saskia Weber. We've got the czar of the virtual background with a really solid virtual background today. You know him as Pro GK Academy, Omar Zeenni. And the reason we have that background right there is because joining us is Reading Football Club women's goalkeeper coach, Craig McCreeth. Craig, what is up, man? Welcome to the show. Hey,
thanks for having us on.
This is what you signed up for, man. It's gonna be like this for the next hour. It's really a fascinating thing, though. Yeah, I mean, I think that, the thing is that like we always kind of joke about the fact that that Omar puts out these backgrounds and everything, and the background honestly is overpowering you right now, Omar. I'm not gonna lie. Like I feel like the rays are emanating from you, from the badge right there.
It's
okay. It'll be used as an audio.
It looks like the sun's behind you, like flaring out. It's impressive. The only reason I don't have backgrounds is I can't figure out how to do it.
So, can you figure out how to do the backgrounds?
No, do you know what? Technology passes me by at times.
I did try once, and it wasn't loading, so I was like, whatever.
Oh my gosh. Well, let's Well, first off, guys, before we get to today's topic, which is going to be, dealing with external factors, and Craig, you actually brought this up because you showed some really cool, clips to me, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'd never even thought about incorporating these into my training sessions. But for those people out there who might not be familiar, with you and what you do with Reading FC Women, and how you ended up over there, why don't you give us a little synopsis?
Yeah, so I'm currently first team goalkeeping coach for Reading Women. I coach the RRTC Regional Talent Centre. So that's goalkeepers from female goalkeepers from under 9 through to under 10, through to under 16s. And then obviously just managing that transition from under 16s into our under 21 program and into ultimately into the first team. Working towards my A license at the minute, goalkeeping A. And I've been at a couple of boys' academies, and London Bees was my first women's club that I worked at, and worked at Barnet, which is their equivalent men's team, when they were in League Two as well.
It's funny because when I saw London Bees in in the women's leagues out there, I was a little confused because it sounded like that's like the name of like an AYSO here in the United States, like little kids team or whatever. And so I was like, did they let the fans vote for the team or something like that? I was like, that's pretty awesome.
So Craig, do you know Matt Doyle too?
I've had some interactions with Doyle. Yeah, we've sort of had some very brief overlaps.
Barnet, yeah.
Across our times at Barnet, yeah.
Okay, sorry to interject, guys.
No. That's good, dude.
I remember because I had Matt Doyle on as well, and I remember he said he was at Barnet for a little bit, and he was going back and forth. So.
Kind of before we go into the topic, though, Craig, I do want to kind of ask you in regards to working with that youth development side and then going into the first team. What is kind of, because I'm not as familiar with the kind of the pyramid in regards to youth development in the UK on the women's side, is that pretty much a kind of a parallel thing where it's the same pyramid with the same club, or is it more like regional centers? How does that work?
So with the program over in the UK, we've got our under 10s, 11s and 12s play in boys grassroots leagues. And then when they get to under 14s and under 16s, they play against other regional talent centres. So your Arsenals, your Chelseas, Southamptons, and then they also have an FA Youth Cup as well. And what for the under 16s, and what they do is mirror that fixture then with the under 14s as well. So if our under 16s we're playing Man United, say, our under 14s would then also play Man United at the same time.
Nice. I've always kind of always are fascinated when I find out about the different ways that different countries do it, because, a lot of times people look and they say, this is the way it should be done, or like, well, this is the way it should be done. And I think one of the great things about the United States is we're exposed to a lot of different, for lack of a better term, goalkeeping cultures, and kind of get to recognize, what kind of works and what doesn't work. So talking about the topic right now in regards to what doesn't work is playing in the sun does not work for me. I'm terrible when it comes to that. And that is an external factor. Yeah, I'm really bad at that. And that's what brought me up.
That's the big black dot.
Well, that's the thing. Now, Craig's come up with a really great training session with that, which is what made me think of this topic here. So, Craig, maybe for maybe some of the parents out there that don't know what we're talking about when we're talking about external factors, why don't you kind of break down what we mean by that?
So an external factor is really anything that, for me, is anything that's outside of the control of the goalkeeper. So that can be fans, that can be social media now in these days poses its own challenges, TV, the weather, sun, wind, rain, pitch conditions, bobbly pitches, really smooth, crisp pitches, hard pitches, soft pitches, where bounces tend to bounce higher, bounce lower. Floodlights are a problem as well. I mean, the list really can go on. You've also got sort of promotions, relegations, cup competitions, fixture congestion. There's endless possibilities of factors that can affect not just your decision making in specific moments, but pressures and psychological challenges moving into a game.
I'm really glad that you brought up, some of the things that had nothing to do with the actual field or the pitch or conditions, because I think that's kind of one of the focuses a lot of people come on to. And I know Saskia and Omar have been very big about this, is that like, it's not always about like what's going on in front of you. It's like sometimes what's coming on, like if it's a bumpy pitch, well, then that gets in your head as opposed to it's really the bumpy pitch, right?
Yeah, definitely. And you've also, you'll second guess yourself as the goalkeeper. If the pitch is bobbly, you'll think, oh, can we play out? I mean, I was playing up until very recently, and I felt it myself. A pitch would be bobbly or heavy, and I'd be like, don't really fancy playing out today. I'm just going to shell it long and get it as far away from my goal as possible. So it's how, as the coach, can we instill confidence in the goalkeeper and the back four and your defensive units to be comfortable to play out. As the goalkeeper, to be confident to go, right, I'm going, and my early decision is I'm going to hold this and things are going to stick. Doesn't matter if it's bobbly, slippy, whatever. I'm good enough and I deserve to be on the pitch. I deserve to have that number one on my back, and I'm going to make correct decisions at the correct moments and execute my decisions effectively.
Yeah. Now, Omar,
I think a good thing in training wise is to highlight those situations. Like it was really, really wet out the other day. So I made sure that the training, like I kind of tweaked my training. So I kind of used the situation to my advantage. I'm like, all right, we're gonna play certain types of balls today, so we can deal with this situation in case you come up against it. The same as if it's windy, you don't shy away from like doing crosses. Do them on that day. Do them on the day that now these factors that you don't see all the time, you can use it as a training tool. I think a lot of people tend to be like, well, it's really windy today, or it's raining, or something like that. So let's not do this, or let's do that. I think it's the total opposite. Use it to your advantage.
I mean, I think that's a great point. And like, Omar, one thing I wanted to bring up with you is because your LA Galaxy have just recently made a managerial change.
Omar, you with the LA Galaxy?
No, man. I support the team. Yeah, I support the team. I wish I was there, but I'm happy. We have a whole podcast on that, how happy I am. But anyways, continue.
We can see it in your smile.
I was gonna say, wouldn't you consider that also, Omar, like kind of an external factor? Is the fact is like there's a managerial change. So, Craig, I don't know if you know, they got rid of the entire staff, including the goalkeeper coach. So this weekend, I don't know. I literally texted you, Omar. I was like, I think you should be the goalkeeper coach for the Galaxy this weekend.
Usually that's what works a lot of the times. You cut the top. You're gonna cut everybody else and then let the new manager bring in who he wants.
Yeah. I mean, even if you think about this weekend, right? I'm sure, Craig, you're up to date on this as well, as with the whole Jordan Pickford thing. Jordan Pickford, obviously, after he hurt Van Dijk, people have been threatening him, sending him messages and saying, that he had to hire his own security team to make sure that he could walk around the city of in Liverpool, you know? So little things like that, external factors. And then now, you know, Ancelotti benched him this weekend. It could have been because maybe he had a lot on his plate and a lot on his mind, but now he gets benched. Olsen comes in, plays well, and Everton still lose, but right, so he plays well, and now Ancelotti's like saying, okay, you know what? Okay, we gave Jordan the break. I wanted to give Olsen a chance to see what he had, and next week Jordan's my guy again. So now it's so many external factors. It doesn't have to be just weather, but now you talk about managerial stuff. Now you talk about backroom discussions and all that stuff too. And it's just so hard for us goalkeeper coaches to, you know, without being personable and without asking those questions. I'm sure Craig can attest this as well. Is like really asking those lead-on questions of like, hey, how are you really doing? Tell me more, so that, you know, of course I can try and give you the best help that I can. So it's not just the X's and O's, techniques and tactics and all that stuff. Now I can actually give you advice or find a way to, you know, not cradle you or shelter you, but give you, you know, some boost of confidence to get your mind off other factors that could, you know, potentially be hindering you.
Yeah, definitely. You've got to build them relationships with your goalkeepers and with your players to have that free flowing conversation. And you know, you'd probably see that Jordan Pickford would have the ability to turn around to his goalkeeping coach and say, look, I've got all of this going on. I probably need a couple of days at home, or I need a couple of days off, or playing at the weekend, my head's not in it. And it's also, as the goalkeeping coach, seeing that in your goalkeeper, having the relationship again with the manager to turn around and go, look, his or her head isn't in the right place.
Yeah.
At the moment, we've got to take them out of the limelight for a little bit, and that could be what's happening on the pitch or off the pitch. And it's just having the relationship is so key. And for us as goalkeeping coaches, it's great. We've got 2, 3, maybe 4 keepers that we're working closely with on a daily or regular basis. So we're able to build those relationships, and that's not always happening on the pitch. That's going and grabbing a coffee at times. Sitting after training, having a random chat or random phone call or conversation on text, just to break down some barriers. Not all of them. You've got to obviously keep your boundaries, but break some barriers down to really get to know them as people and coach the person as well as the goalkeeper.
Yeah, I think it also, like, to echo that, I think when you build that relationship, you know, you're going to notice that something's wrong because you've taken that time. Like a couple of weeks ago, I noticed one of my keepers was really off, and I pulled her aside, asked something was going on, and we're in training, and I just said, I want you to just keep it simple. You know, let's get through this. You know, moved in with the team at that point, and let's just get through the session, and we'll talk. You know, we'll sit and talk and stuff. But you have to notice it, and you have to and that having that relationship is the way. Because you can't always rely, if you don't have a tight relationship, the keeper's not going to come up to you and and say something. They're going to try to power through it, and sometimes it's not the best thing for them.
You know, one thing, Omar, is that, you know, Craig, you brought up social media, and then obviously you were talking about the Jordan Pickford situation right now in regards to, I mean, it's absurd. People, it's just a game. It's just a game. Please.
It's their rival. That's the only issue there was, you know, and they're in first place. It's all this whole.
I know. It's a red and blue. I know it's a red and blue thing. I know. It's who owns Liverpool. But the thing is that I'd say
we're like Americans right now heckling about Liverpool fans. I mean, we're on our highways right now. Okay. We got nothing.
We have our own derby tomorrow. Let's be honest, going on right there. But I would say, you know, Omar, is that social media right now is probably the biggest external factor in regards to, at least at the professional level, and possibly even at the collegiate level, in regards to just how connected those kids are.
Yeah, I mean, you know what's crazy though is that I was actually talking to one of my friends recently, and we were talking about the powers of social media and how sometimes we're just talking about content and how we create content, and sometimes the content that we don't even want to get big, it does, just because of like whatever the title has in it, whatever it is, a weird algorithm. And he was saying that like Gareth Bale, for example, doesn't even run his own social media channel anymore. He has his own team doing that because of how negative it is and how many people will come on there and just obviously say things that will, you know, affect you. And I think now with social media, I don't think we get it as much on the college scene in soccer, maybe like college football or like, you know, those people who are really in the limelight. I can imagine in England how crazy it is and how, you know, just how much it can consume you and how much energy it takes to try and back yourself up and prove things to people that otherwise don't even know you and don't even know the external factors. There's only like 5 or 6 people in this world that you actually know specifically what's going on in their lives. The rest of it, you're just speculating, and that speculation can sometimes really, damage people's, just not egos, but like damage them as just people. And I don't think that's people can really play through that sometimes. It's tough.
The whole world knows Mike's got a kidney stone, though.
Yeah, and the whole world does know I have a kidney stone because I literally, Craig, we were talking about it, that episode with
that was too easy.
No, that episode with Aaron, I was on painkillers the entire time. I don't remember what I said, and I literally listened back to it. It was such a funny episode.
I was watching him. I was like, Mike was like all over. I was like, oh my God, Mike.
But Mike, I'm gonna add one more thing to that. Sure. I think it was either on this podcast or somebody was mentioned that Dan Abrahams, I think he had posted, he was like, world-renowned sports psychologist. He was saying that he has noticed that some of his past clients or some of the players that he knows has like psychological issues because of the fans and because of how much pressure there is when they're playing in front of thousands of people, how much better they have gotten when all that noise is now silent and they can just focus on themselves, focus on the game. So that can also be another case study as well, as just, how many of those players were fringe players who really separated themselves once this quarantine happened and these matches were behind closed doors, which is also another interesting thing as well in this whole pandemic.
Well, Craig, I have a question for you though. Like, can we really replicate this and put this into our session design, these external factors, when we're talking about the non-tangible ones? Is that a word? Intangible? Non-tangible? Intangible.
Well, one of my biggest external factors playing, and this is kind of a joke, but it's kind of serious, was my mom yelling. And I know that sounds crazy, but it's true. And she's crazy Dutch hooligan. And but it was stressful for me. It was stressful in college and everything like that. I mean, you can sit my mom in the stands and she can yell at people. She can help you train. But but it's true. And I can dumb it down to one person as opposed to 90,000 didn't bother me. But I love you, Mom. But sometimes it got to be a lot. So my dad's quiet. But no, I know that's kind of dumbing it down and making it simple, but we're also talking about young kids and their players here. So I'm taking a hit at you sideline parents right now, and those kind of things that affect your young goalkeepers, and that you don't realize. So I think, we have to kind of cover the gamut. They're not just playing in front of 90,000 people.
Craig, I think we need to do is we need to fly Saskia's mom to Reading.
Around, she can be the training person.
She can be the training heckler.
She can be the one voice.
We'll get her in behind the goal.
There you go.
Get her in behind the goal for a session.
Mina, you have a new job.
I think just on that as well, you were saying about players playing when there's now no pressure with the fans inside the ground. I think you'll probably see that might affect some players in a negative way as well. So you'll find some players who buzz off of that atmosphere and that environment. I think the biggest one really, you kind of look at a high energy, high pressing team like Liverpool, aren't really hitting the same levels they were when there were fans in the ground. So as a team, does their style of football thrive off of having those fans, having that noise, having that support, having that to bounce off and buzz off of? So I think it can work in both ways.
No, I agree.
Both a positive and a negative.
I agree with that. Yeah.
I never thought about that in regards
to some people. It amps them up. I mean, I made that joke about my mom, but I loved getting heckled by the other team's fans. Especially in college. UConn is infamous for it. Cornell, I remember I loved playing there because I would just crack up. And then playing pro against Atlanta and stuff. I love playing against Atlanta, and they'd be behind my goal and just going and going. It would just amp me up.
But on a positive note, in regards to just all those fans and stuff like that, I think a great example would be Saskia, your 99ers, the support you all had, through that entire World Cup from everyone here in the United States. I think that helped propel that team to kind of the glory that you helped achieve.
Yeah, I mean, those fans, look at the Germany game, for example. I don't know if you pull that game out under a different atmosphere. I wouldn't say we wouldn't, of course, we did, but that was a tough one. We could have lost the quarterfinal, and that energy, that boost in the stadium and for the subs on the sideline, everything just helping propel and push the team into the second half and coming out with the win. And I think that had a lot to do with it. Yeah.
Yeah. Craig, do you guys do any sort of, scenario types? I don't know if you, have Saskia's mom, type situations,
Wilhelmina's
heckling
going
you
to be
on the
famous now.
side, on the side. Wilhelmina, you got Wilhelmina on this.
I love it.
But I mean, but do you guys do that when you're putting these sessions together? Because I think that's one of the biggest issues, at least in the youth game, is that we'll design a session and it's all based on concept of like what they're planning on from a tactical standpoint, and and how they're doing this and how this guy scouts and all that stuff, and then they get to the game and like you're talking about these external factors, like, oh, we didn't know that there's going to be divots on that left side of the field right there, or the sun's coming from the right over there or whatever. So do you guys like do your scouting and go like, oh, at West Ham it's like this, so we need to train like this week?
Yeah, we've obviously done a lot of our tactical work now. Last session before the game tomorrow, when we've done our phases, our 11v11s and our big picture work, we've narrowed the pitch off that we're using, because the pitch that we're going to be playing on Wednesday night is a lot narrower than the pitches we've got at the training ground. So yeah, it's just understanding the grounds that you go into, and trying to best replicate. I mean, we're not saying go and get your pitchforks out and smash up your training pitches because you're going and playing at a hole somewhere.
Yeah, but you also might hurt somebody.
But yeah, I mean,
sorry, we have four ACLs because we decided to play in a minefield.
The training groundskeepers aren't going to be happy about that either. You got pitchforks and you're just raking everything.
Yeah, just saying the groundsmen are fantastic, to be fair to us. They'll do everything that we need. But you say on that, it's then how can you be creative with it? So obviously the session I sent across to you was in the build up to an evening game. So knowing that we was playing with floodlights, and it's the biggest thing. I sat planning the session and I was thinking, well, what's the biggest challenge that you're facing as the goalkeeper? And it's losing the ball in flight. If it's a slightly higher, more looped cross, you're going to struggle. You're going to lose the ball through the floodlight. How can we now replicate that in training? And I'm thinking, well, do I bring the car out and park that, put the headlights on? No, that's not going to work. And we ended up
pulling it up right now so everyone can kind of see.
Yeah. So we've got a little 2-goal practice, got some bodies, got the mannequins in, we're always working in and around bodies. And I'm actually throwing a Swiss ball, a gym ball up in the air. And what that's aiming to do is just to distract the goalkeeper's eye line. You might lose the ball behind the Swiss ball. Yeah. And it's just trying to paint some different pictures and trying to give some of the challenges that we might be facing. I think across the session there was a couple that we got little deflections on it and bits and pieces, which wasn't
I love this.
aiming for. But
so cool.
I need a Swiss ball. I'm gonna tell Amanda right now. I need a Swiss ball.
Omar, have you ever done this with the Swiss balls before?
I haven't, no, but I actually have a session at 4:00 today, which is like an hour or so, and I'm doing crossing today, so I think I might bring it out.
I think it's awesome.
Dude, this is so cool, man. And I think this is also, I think this is also an example right here, for everybody who's watching this, of using accessories in a way that's like works for what you're trying to train. Like you're not just throwing a Swiss ball out there because you're like, oh, this would be a cool idea for me to throw a Swiss ball up in the air. No, it serves a purpose.
Yeah, it's you've got to be sometimes, although as goalkeepers we play in the box, as goalkeeping coaches at times we've got to think out of the box.
Be resourceful.
I gotta text her. I do. I'm gonna be like, Jay, I need a Swiss ball.
Kitmen everywhere are now ordering Swiss balls.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So this past weekend, I was watching it was Man City versus Sheffield, and I did like a full report on it. I was kind of like just breaking it down and watching it. And like middle of the game, they pan the camera over to the floodlights, and they show you that it's like torrential rain. It's literally raining sideways. And when you're watching the game, you can't really make that up. No. You can't really make that because when you're looking at it, you're like, okay, from a distance, it can look like it's kind of raining, but you can't really tell. And then I see there's a shot earlier in the game. Aaron Ramsdale gets a shot from like middle of the goal, kind of an unobstructed shot, shoots it, and the ball kind of swerves a little bit. And like last minute, he works on his steering. He really like intentionally pushes the ball. You could tell that like he made his mind up early. And when you guys know the weather reports on the weekend is going to be extremely, you know, rainy and how it is in England. Do you say to your goalkeepers, like, look, I understand right now it may not be wet, the surface may not be that wet, maybe you know, put some sprinklers on to artificially make it, but it's like right now I want you guys to pretend or simulate as if we're in the game where it's going to be pouring rain this weekend most likely, and I want you to work on your parries, I want you to work on your steering. Is that something you guys do in terms of kind of like when you're expecting something to come and then preparing for it?
What game was it? It might have been before we played West Ham in the league. The weather was probably the worst I've coached in. The pitch at the start was all right. Come the end of the session,
coach in the UK, and that was the worst weather you've
yeah.
Like,
I mean, it says a lot there.
Come to Southern California. If it drizzles, they shut down all the field. It's true, wow. You guys know they shut down. You're not allowed on the pitches. They'll mess up our pitch.
Yeah, we had puddles by the end of the session, and knowing the weather, it was due to be rainy and drizzly, and so the conditions actually the day before a game were worse than what we were likely to face. Wow. And it's just, as you say, getting those messages in to the keepers, thinking about your parrying, thinking about your areas. I actually used one of the outfield coaches to come and serve so that I could just focus on being on rebounds, to really encourage the goalkeepers to make sure that they were parrying into good areas, making good, clear, early decisions. And again, during your warm-up on a game day, that's part of your messages that you've got to be getting across to your goalkeepers. Look, thinking about the conditions. Is it wet now but dry later? Okay, think about how your start position is now going to change. Think about how the flight of the ball might adjust as it bounces. And they're little messages as coaches we can be getting across at all times, and even in your last moments before a game, just really helping them, and even during the game, just giving and reiterating that information.
You know, so you know, one last thing I want to add to that is, like, you know, for me, as you guys know, Mike, I do more, you know, personal, private stuff. I don't really do in college. I do, you know, we have 20 games, and I'm sure, you know, now Saskia, you understand, it's like we have 20 games and you got to make sure the goalkeeper is sharp and ready for those 20 games. And the scouting report's important, the weather is important, all that stuff's very important. But on the side, kind of like private contractors, I get a lot of kids where, not to say that I don't have time, but I don't have time, essentially, to look at their schedules and say, okay, hey, this weekend it's going to rain. Let's work on some pressure training on potential things you're going to see, or let's put you on a turf field today because you're going to be on a turf field on the weekend, you know? So I don't know. Do you have any advice for, you know, coaches who may not have the goalkeepers as consistently? Is that still something that we should try to implement into our sessions, or is that something that we can just, you know, leave up to them and their imagination, or with their team, their coach has to figure that part out?
I think that the less contact time you've got with your goalkeepers, the more structured it needs to become. So you need to then have a real plan. If you know that you're working with a keeper for an hour every other week, for example, the work you're going to be doing is probably not going to be really game specific. It's going to be more general techniques, ticking over, technical development. So that then you can come with a real structure and a real plan. And okay, today we are going to be working on angled shot stopping, block, spread, smothers, and go with some real structure. And in that almost syllabus that you're working to, you can then cover off we're dealing with only parrying today, or we're only doing foot saves today. We're only doing this specific thing, because you can really then tailor that and adjust that based on knowing, right, I've got them twice a month, so we're going to cover off all of this. And then you've got your structure and your syllabus to work through. And then obviously that then, where I'm with them every day, everything's game specific, bar the international breaks when it's individual specific.
That's actually, go ahead, Saskia.
Great point.
No, I was thinking about another external factor, because we were talking about the games this weekend and stuff like that. What MLS game was it I was watching yesterday? I turned it off. No, I did. I can't remember which game it was. It was yesterday. And the coach, he was joysticking and I couldn't listen to it. And he kept repeating the same thing over and over and over and over again. And I was like, are you going to give any information? Or are you just going to say, stay focused, lads, whatever he was saying. But it was over and over and over and over again, to the point that I got annoyed just watching and turning it off. So my question about external factors is, you know, sometimes you're going to have somebody come in with a coach that it's just not going to click. Like I know that as an assistant coach or as a goalkeeper coach for club, there were certain coaches I would be on the opposite side of the field with because I couldn't stand it. And I don't respond to that kind of, especially field players, to that, like, you tell me everything I'm supposed to do, instead of, let me figure out the situation for myself. So, I don't think goalkeepers coaches do it because it's not, but how do we deal with that? Because coaches out there, and again, I'm speaking to, a lot of youth coaches, it's distracting as well. Like, give your information, trust on your training, trust on preparing your team and everything. But, also recognize when somebody doesn't respond to things that way, or yelling or screaming, and some people don't respond to that way. Like, how do you guys deal with that? Anybody?
Yeah, that links back to knowing your individuals, doesn't it? And as a goalkeeping coach, if you've got a manager or a head coach who is very loud and much more of your sort of dictator and constant shouting, yelling information, it's how can you without undermining the head coach, right, how can you sort of tell the goalkeeper ignore that?
Yeah. It's true though.
It's a very difficult one, but it's something that I personally haven't had to deal with. It's a tricky one to get that balance of going, look, concentrate on your game, focus on what you're doing, see the pictures that you see, play the passes that you want to play, that you think's right in the moment. Right. If it's wrong, we'll pick it up in analysis afterwards, or at a later date, and really give that ownership and that confidence onto the goalkeeper, so that they can almost channel out what's coming from the sideline, whether that be from you or from the head coach or from the coach that's being a bit more vocal than.
And I think I agree with everything you said. I think it's something that does have to be discussed, and even because it comes down to field players as well. And you see it with, you got 4 field players calling you, telling you what to do with the ball, where to pass it, especially to a goalkeeper. When you're reading the whole field in front of you, you might have made the decision to go straight to the 9 or out to the 8 or, or something like that. When, your center back's telling you what to do and stuff. And you see young keepers and you see keepers get kind of, all it takes is that fluster and that question. And now everything's screwed up. Now people aren't in position. Now you might have pressure on you and stuff like that. So I think, it's something that has to be discussed, that how to filter out that noise and trust you as a goalkeeper, what we've taught you and what you need to do, because there's a lot of it. And I have to talk to my keepers about it. I can see them like wanting to do something, then they do something else. And I'm just like, why didn't you go with your first instinct? Well, so-and-so is yelling at me. So what? Her back is to the field, her back is, the whole field's behind her and she's facing you. And you saw the man coming on her. No, don't give her the ball. But you stopped and you questioned yourself. So I think that's something that has to be trained as well.
I love that. I love you bringing this up, because the thing is that I think one of the biggest external factors, absolutely right, is peer pressure from the other players on the squad. Omar, I know this is something that you've dealt with in the past as well too. I know I've dealt with it as well too. And I think it's one of those things that's very difficult to replicate, in a training environment, unless you're making that training environment as game realistic as possible, in which case those same relationships, the same scenarios. But I think the problem that I think Saskia and you were talking about is that maybe a little bit more of a toxic environment where maybe I
don't think it's necessarily a toxic environment. I think you have multiple personalities on a field. Okay. You have people that are very vocal leaders on the field. Some people that are, let's say Mia Hamm's yelling at you, and you're a young freshman goalkeeper or something like that. And, whether you're intimidated, not that Mia was a yeller, but whether, I'm just an example, maybe you're intimidated and stuff. And I think that that's something that as goalkeeper coaches, we have to kind of identify and realize, are they making these mistakes in training because they're listening to the other people? Let's have a talk about it. Why did you make that decision? Well, so-and-so was yelling at me and it's so whatever. No, make your own decision. What was your decision going to be? And I don't necessarily think it's toxic. I think you have just a lot of personalities on the field.
I mean, I think that's a really good point. Oh, Omar, I want to ask you this question because we're talking about the youth here. I know when you were at LA Galaxy in the academy over there, and we'll say that's why you're a diehard LA Galaxy fan through and through. Is that you had a little bit of a bumps in the road, let's just say, at one point where you lost your starting position, and you dropped back. And is that one of those situations too, where like when you lose that starting position, that now all of a sudden that external factor of knowing that you're no longer the number one is affecting how you're training, is affecting how you're playing, and it's something that's out of your control, other than you just trying to do the best job that you can?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I made a podcast about it. I was pretty, transparent about the situation. I had gotten injured earlier. I was under 16. I had gotten injured earlier in the season. I came back, kind of rushed it, had a few bad games. And then after that, we went to the playoffs. And in the playoffs, again, the high pressure of the Galaxy Academy is supposed to be this amazing thing. It was our first year as an academy team, and they had all these high expectations. In the first game, we're tied 0-0. I dropped the ball, lose some focus. They tap it back in. We were down 1-0. We ended up losing 2-1. And then after the game, some of my teammates were just looking at me like, oh man, how could you do that to us? This is what we've been working for forever. And how could you, all this stuff. And then I had some teammates on the phone with their parents, and they're saying, yeah, we played amazing. And then they would look at me and say, yeah, but Omar, messed up in the cleanest language that I could say it in. And then, my goalkeeper coach walked up to me and he was like, Omar, that can never happen. That cannot happen. So instead of giving me words of advice, it was like, that can't happen. We're going to have a discussion at the hotel. We had 2 more games left in the tournament. So I was like, okay, maybe I could, come back. And the team switched their tone with me, and they were really happy. They said, hey, just, fight back. The other team had a favorable result for us. So if we win the next 2 games, we could probably, potentially go through. Next game, we're up 1-0. They shoot a ball. I'm already looking forward to see where the next pass is going. Slips right through my hands, goes in. We tie 1-1. After that, so the field next to us, they won their game. So by the time we figured out what the scores were, we were already out of the tournament. And I could see a quick shift in everyone's perspective of, okay, Omar's our guy, number 1. Let's joke around with this guy. All of a sudden, I made those mistakes, and I became the number 2. And from then on, I got number 2 reps. I got pretty much the short end of every stick. The goalkeepers, all my teammates would make fun of me and stuff. So for the next 6 to 8 months, I became the guy in the background who I couldn't control what my teammates thought of me. I couldn't do anything, but I had to be patient and understand that there was a process to getting everyone's respect level back and getting their trust back. My goalkeeper coach didn't really help me with that. I'll be honest with you. He was the guy who ended up being the number 1, committed to the school that he was coaching at. So you can see where his priorities were. But
conflict of interest there. Dude.
I'm like, everybody get comfortable. This is a good story.
No, big conflict of interest. But no, over time, I think, yeah, again, it's one of those ones where you kind of have to have that self-reflection. And if your coaching staff's not going to be there for you and give you those, like Craig was saying earlier, it's that trust factor where you understand that you can be hard on somebody. It's like you have kids, the goalkeeping unit, you're essentially the father or the uncle of the kids. And you got to make sure that they're like, hey, there's a fine line between us joking around and us being serious. At the end of the day, it's a business. So I think my parents described that to me very well of like, look, you're playing for an organization that has a lot of history. So you can't go in there crying that you made mistakes and they're not giving you your spot back. So instead of doing that, keep showing up to practice, keep on doing the little things right. And I think that's what happened to me psychologically is I realized, okay, to get the trust back of people, it's not going to be overnight. I have to be very, very patient and then do a string of little things right for a longer period of time. And once I got that figured out, then I'll be fine. So it took me about a year. I got my spot back, and I'm the goalkeeper, and I ended up, switching off back and forth game after game. So it was good after that, but it was still those rough periods where no one really knew what I was going through. I went to every session just in the dark. I was kind of sad. I was like, damn, okay, what if I mess up today? What if I do this? What if I do that? And no one ever asked me, hey, so how are you doing? I probably would have unleashed and I would have told them everything. But for me, it was like I got to take on these little these demons, conquer these demons on my own.
But I think part of what we're talking about is as a goalkeeper coach and stuff like that, you need to identify how to control those outside influences. Like who's running your team? The kids.
Definitely.
And no, that's unacceptable. I've stood there on the field and seen one of my keepers give up a bad goal in training. And, everything's competition out there at UCLA and stuff like that. And see, it's a bad goal and, it cost the small-sided game at that moment. And a comment being made, like, I can't believe she didn't get that. And I was like, well, maybe if your freaking forward scored one of the 7 shots she just shanked wide, we wouldn't have even gotten to that point.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, you've got to shut people up sometimes. And I'm sorry, like nobody messes with my keepers. I'll talk to them. You know, and I've seen coaches let kids run the team, and I've seen it at such a young age when I was coaching camp. These kids hammering like 10-year-old, 12-year-old, how old was he? Hammering him in practice. And I walked up and I go, everybody come here, because I was director of goalkeeping, and I was like, unacceptable. I'm like, but he let the kids, that was the way he taught. He let, these are children, number one. Number two, who's leading this? Like,
yeah.
Who's
my goalkeeper coach, as I've said before, he was part of the Air Force. So there's a lot of things that they do in terms of like psychological warfare.
He's like, waterboarding is next.
It's not an excuse. I'll tell you, Craig, I know this probably, we're taking away from the episode.
Don't ever do it again, Omar.
Okay, no, but I remember, see, there were certain things that he would do for me and say things to me that I was just like, okay, I don't know what side you're playing on here. Like, who's, like, if you're trying to make me better or make me, think about things in a more self-reflective way. But I remember there was one time, and some of my friends said this to me, but we're sitting behind, he was sitting behind the goal, like next to me, and we're playing like a little scrimmage. And every time the ball gets reset to the top, I turn back to my goalkeepers and we're just talking and stuff. And then I turned back to him like once or twice, and he didn't say a word to me. I was kind of looking at him to give me some feedback or something. And he started staring at me. And I hate it when people stare at me. I don't enjoy it. So I kept looking at him. I was like, Coach, what'd you think of that? And he didn't say a word. Just kept staring at me with this weird, like, aloof face, like just kind of like just didn't know I don't know what he was thinking. So the next one, I make
kind of like nice Craig staring at you right now.
Well, I make a clean catch, and again, I get kind of worried. I'm like, Coach, when you don't say something to me, I get worried that you're like, quiet is not good. And so, after a few minutes pass by, everybody goes and gets water. He goes, Omar, come back here real quick. Like, do you understand what I was doing there to you? And I was like, not really. I'm kind of, worried. Usually you get upset when you don't talk. And he was like, Omar, but think about it. You want to be a pro, right? And I was like, yeah. He's like, well, here at the stadium, we probably average about 27,000 fans. So what happens, Omar, if a fan behind the goal that you don't like is staring at you for 90 minutes? Are you going to turn around and say to every single 27,000 of those fans, stop staring at me? And I was like, Coach, but I'm 16. I'm like, Coach, I don't know how that has relevance to you not responding to like my question about that I have a good rep there. He's like, but think about it, Omar, psychologically, I'm testing you.
He just didn't have the answer.
Yeah, I was like, he's testing me. I was just like, but that's what I mean though. And that's where it's like,
I think we're losing Craig.
Sometimes you need to figure out a way to like, obviously push the envelope to a certain extent. Like Craig was saying, have individual plans when the goalkeepers go to international break that you kind of have to, hey, look, you're probably not the one getting the minutes, but I need you to understand that this next week of you being here solo and you and I training, I'm going to push you to the limit. So I know that psychologically you're ready to go if we need you in those big moments. So again, it's like that trust level where you kind of have to walk that fine line.
But by the way, I will say, I really can't wait for the Omar Zeenni one-man show. I am buying tickets to that thing.
I think that was 15 minutes.
That was hilarious, dude. That was hilarious.
Craig went like this at one point.
I saw Craig's face go like this, and I didn't know if he was like embarrassed for you or if he was just laughing so hard.
Do you know what? I was just the story with him just sitting there and staring. I just that got me. It's definitely a new one. I might try that tomorrow evening with the young ones. See what happens. But I mean,
go Craig, please.
Go Craig, please go Craig.
Just on those sorts of similar lines, one thing I do with the kids is I'll take up and use different tones of voice and different almost personalities with them. So sometimes I'm on their level, best mate, laughing, joking. I'll do the running with them. I'll do the warm up with them. I'll do all sorts of stuff. And some days I'm loud and erratic and all over the place. And it's just trying to keep them in a bit of an unsettled environment at times. But also, as we touched on, when you've got teammates shouting and wanting this pass, do this, coaches shouting, parents, man walking his dog through the park, having a little pop or whatever it is, you've still got to kind of prep your keepers for that, and taking up those different personalities, those different tones of voice, different levels of information is all little tools that you can use as goalkeeping coaches to help and prep the keepers for anything really, because as we all know, goalkeeping is such a random and varied world.
Yeah, and I think sometimes the silence is a good thing. I mean, I do it at practice. If we're doing scrimmaging stuff, like I'll just let them play, like figure out your decisions. Like, sometimes I'll see a keeper looking at me after something happened. I'm like, play, like, I can't be in the back of your goal for every single thing. And I think the silence is good. Maybe not just creepy staring, but the silence is good. I think I'll try that too, Craig. I think I'll just stand there Wednesday like this, staring.
Oh my God.
They might cry if I do that.
The staring thing, though. Although I think we brought up a really good point in regards to kind of like Saskia, you being like, them going like this. It's like, look, it's like I can't control the game. So when you're out there playing. So I think one of the toughest things for me personally, maybe that's why I didn't have the highest of levels of success, is because of I wasn't willing to accept the external factors that were out of my control. Like when I'd go out there and like the sun was bothering me, I was just waiting for someone to remove the sun, or I would be like looking at like the clouds.
It was in your mind. It's all
it was in my mind.
Here comes the cross. Oh no, the sun. Here comes this. Oh no, the sun. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that in itself is really, really difficult, Craig, is for young goalkeepers, especially. And obviously, you're working with the little ones at 10 years old, even, for them to be willing to accept that there's some things that are out of their control. Like your team scoring is kind of out of your control.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, one of the big things from a sort of a cultural and understanding point of view that I like to get across to the keepers across all the levels is control the controllables.
Yeah.
Control what you can control. Control how you prep for training in a game. Control how you recover from training in a game. Control your reflection time, be that watching the game back, sitting and making your notes. Control your approach to training. Control your nutrition. Control how you conduct yourself in the gym. Control the extras that you're doing. Control the questions you're asking of me and asking of yourself. You can't control your strikers scoring. You can't control your midfielders playing the right pass at the right time. You can't control the weather. You can't control the pitch unless you want to get there and cut the grass and roll it and paint the lines and do whatever. You can only control what you can control, and we've got enough to think about as goalkeepers with start positions, decision making, assessments of type of passes, playing passes, organization, communication, shot stopping, 1v1. We've got so much other stuff going on. We can't and shouldn't waste our time and our energy and our mental capacity on the weather or the pitch or missed opportunities up the other end or the worldie save that we've just made, because it's happened. So it's done. It's finished. You can't relive that moment. Yeah, you've dug one out the top corner. Brilliant. You've now got a corner to go and defend. So get your organization right. Control what you can control and live in the moment, and don't people get too caught up on excuses. The only excuse is how you've approached a situation.
I mean, I can't tell you guys, all three of you guys here, how many times just when I think I'm reflecting back on my career right now, maybe I won't talk for 15 minutes about, some of these mistakes like Omar has, but
how long was your career?
My career?
Oh, I'm kidding. I was teasing you. Oh my God.
Definitely not as long as yours.
As a bad
definitely
joke.
Not as long as yours.
Never mind.
It was 4 years of sitting on benches.
I was kidding. Oh my gosh.
Okay. Anyway, is how many excuses I made for myself. Well, that was because the sun. Well, those fields. If my trial had been in a different facility, if so-and-so hadn't been on that team, it would have been a different situation, just me and that coach just didn't connect, all those sorts of things, And I think, Craig, one of the things that we're kind of bearing down right now is that if you want to be a true professional, and Omar, I think that's what Mr. Military Man was trying to instill in you in a very awkward way, is that you are going to have to get past that stuff, and Saskia, I know you who've played at the highest of levels know that, is that you had to get past everything.
Yeah, I didn't really I never let stuff like that bog me down. I was never like, oh man, it's raining, or oh man, all right, the Wilhelmina story. But and when I see keepers do that, okay, the pitch was that you slipped. I know you slipped. We all saw you slip. You don't have to tell me you slipped. We don't have to focus on the fact you slipped. You know, just get up and keep playing, please. You know, like you don't have to look back at your foot and the ground and the divot, go fix it. Like we get it. You know what I mean? Just move on with it. And yet it is what it is. I never got, you know, if like Craig said, you know, okay, I put it over the bar, I got it, and you know, I should have held on to it. Well, you know, I didn't, and now I got a corner to deal with, and that's in the past now. So, and even a mistake that you make, move on. You know, I always say, don't follow a mistake by another mistake, whether that be focusing on the first one and not being refocused, whether that be making 2 bad decisions because you're so focused on the first bad decision you make, you don't focus enough to make the right second decision, you know, so move on.
Yeah. You know, Craig, I got a question for you in regards to where you're working with all sorts, especially at the training centers, you're working with all different types of profiles of goalkeepers, you know, and do you kind of take that into consideration when how you handle each one based on their profile differently, based on uncontrollables that they're dealing with?
At times I do, but at times I don't, because the game doesn't cater for different individuals. The game is what it is, whether you're an introvert, extrovert, confident, not confident. The game is still what it is, and that's never going to change. So there has to be an element of, well, this is the picture, this is the scenario, this is what you're going to face, these are the challenges that are going to come against you. But it's also then, how can we balance out the imbalances? So you've got an introvert, how can we instill them with confidence? How can we bring them out of their shell a little bit and enable them to deal with your external pressures of your fans? Because I find that extroverts are better at dealing with the external stuff of fans and all of that kind of thing, because naturally they're going to be more confident and more outgoing. So it's more, brush it off, fine, no problem. Whereas your introverts, your quiet characters, that will probably eat away at them slowly and affect them a little bit more. So it's teaching them to deal with those kinds of things. But in terms of the in-game stuff, in-game's the same regardless of your personality type and the type of goalkeeper that you are.
So well said, because what I like is to find out off the field that somebody is that. Like all of a sudden I'm like, gosh, I didn't know you were such an introvert, or I didn't know you were such an extrovert. Because on the game, it's the game. You know, it requires the same. It requires, you know, a certain communication. It requires a certain way of handling. Like, you know, it's a gray area, but you guys understand what I'm saying. I totally agree with that. And then to come find out that, oh, you know, she's really, you know, shy and off the field and really an introvert. I was like, I had no idea. You know, that's not what she just brings. What we need on the field. So I totally agree with that. Game's a game.
There's a keeper that I'm working with at the
Omar
moment.
left.
I'm here.
We were staring at him.
I sat through 15 minutes of LA Galaxy and he listens to me talking about different types of goalkeepers for 2 minutes and he's gone and done one.
Sorry. Craig was staring at me super weird, so I had to take pause. I'm back. I was that one fan behind the goal.
that was awesome. I had to sit here for 15 minutes of LA Galaxy.
Ref, we gotta do something about this guy. He keeps staring at me. I don't know what to do.
That was awesome. Well
okay.
Done,
You're working with the goalkeeper.
I love it. That's when you know Craig finally he's gotten comfortable on the show. It's like once he's willing to start taking knocks at Omar, he's like, I'm good now. I'm good.
I've got my second win now. It's 5-11, so I might go for a run in a bit. I was saying about working with a goalkeeper at the minute who's very much an introvert, very quiet, very shy, very technically able goalkeeper, very comfortable with the ball at feet, very confident to play, and she's very comfortable in a football environment. But in a social environment, having conversations on a one-to-one basis, not that great. And one thing that we've been working on, we've been working together for a couple of years now, is working on a football personality. So as she steps through the gate, as she steps on the Astro or steps into the changing room, steps onto a pitch, there's almost this switch that goes in her head, and she becomes this different person and this elite goalkeeper. and that's one thing that we're tweaking and refining, and it's not changing her as a person, it's changing her as a footballer.
Nice.
So off the pitch, she's still the same person, still the same individual. We're not tweaking and changing that because that is who she is. We're just trying to enhance who she is when she steps onto a football pitch, and it's a slow process. And what you've got, what coaches need to understand at youth level, you're not developing a goalkeeper to be the complete professional on a Saturday or a Sunday. You're developing them to be the complete professional when they hit 21, 22, 23, 24 years old. So it doesn't have to happen overnight. And you've got, particularly when we're working in these sorts of areas of the game, the mental side of things, you've got to give goalkeepers time. You've got to create an environment where mistakes are accepted, but taken as lessons. And you create somewhere in an environment that goalkeepers feel comfortable to grow, develop, learn, and ask questions, and not put pressures on them to be the best come the Saturday or Sunday, but to be better than they were last Saturday or Sunday.
Love it.
Yeah.
I'll come play for Reading.
I mean, that was incredible, man. That was absolutely, I mean, that was so well said.
We're gonna take a poll after this. I'm gonna do a survey to see which one people were affected by more, my story or Craig's. I'm excited to see the results.
Oh my gosh, man. Well, Craig, I know it's like 11 o'clock, for you right now. So we're gonna start wrapping up right now. But one thing I do actually want to ask you is because this is an external factor that I never even thought about until we had a DOC on last week, and I don't know if this is a situation that is common in the UK as well. And I know Omar and Saskia, you guys have dealt with this here. Is that it's the demands that the team coach puts on the goalkeeper at the club, at the youth level. You're saying you're not trying to make the consummate professional on a Saturday or Sunday, at 12 years old. Well, there's a lot of team coaches out there who don't understand that, because they look at the goalkeeper as just an accessory to their team's development. So they want a finished product goalkeeper out there to get their job done, because they're not thinking about the goalkeeper. They're thinking about their team and how their team's been playing and stuff. And they're just looking for somebody that's going to be able to facilitate that and make it work. I'm trying to think what I'm trying to say right here. Should have just ended it on the one before.
He just feels bad. He doesn't have a story.
On that, I kind of get where you're going with it. And on that one, a goalkeeper is a part of the team, not apart from the team. And any coach that thinks, right, the goalkeeper's just there because I'm working with 10 outfield players and I have to have someone who wears a different color shirt and puts on some silly gloves and throws themselves around, that's the wrong way of approaching it. And you should probably step away from football. The goalkeeper is just as important as any other player on the pitch. And
absolutely,
that it shows the importance of the goalkeeper, because they need this special person to look after them and coach them and nurture them and work with them for their specific technical, tactical, physical, psychological, social, all that good stuff. So, as coaches, they've got to be more open to listening to the goalkeeping coach if there's one available. And if there isn't a goalkeeping coach available, and you are really that passionate about developing young football players, read up and learn about goalkeeping and understand what being a goalkeeper is, what being a goalkeeper requires, and at times what being a goalkeeper actually feels like, and speak to your goalkeeper about that. You can't put any more pressure on the goalkeeper than you put on any other member of the team, because the goalkeeper is part of that same team and is still going on the same learning journey and development journey as every other player on your team. So help them with that, support them with that. And if you haven't got the tools and knowledge available to you to do that, point the goalkeeper in the direction of someone who can. There's so much information out there nowadays with podcasts, with
Inside the
YouTube.
18.
Exactly. There's
come on, Omar.
The internet is amazing.
And Pro GK Academy.
And Pro GK Academy.
There's so much information. Information's available so much now with the internet, and you've got to be able to use that and utilize it and take some of it with a pinch of salt, because some of the circus skills that get shown on social media aren't necessarily all that relevant.
We talk about that all the time. I have some of my favorites.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember the last time I saw a goalkeeper jump through hoops on a pitch.
Oh my God, anyway. I saw that one the other day. Oh my God, the dive to the hoop at the ball. I was like, what is going on?
Yeah, but do you know, he put the coaches that do those sessions probably looked, what's this numpty doing throwing a Swiss ball around in a session? But, you know, hey ho, we all have our own ways of doing things, and there's no right or wrong way of doing it.
There's some wrong ways.
But there are some very horrific ways of doing things. But I think coaches have to take an interest in the goalkeeping side of things and help to guide and support the goalkeeper the same they would do any other member of the team. And if the coach doesn't want to do that, then they can at me on Twitter or Instagram or whatever, and I'll have the discussion with them.
That's a great way to plug you. By the way, Craig, thank you for saving my completely digging a hole after your eloquent speech, where we probably should have ended the entire podcast.
End it now, Mike.
Before we continue on. No, honestly, Craig, I mean, thanks for taking all the time, man. Again, like you were saying, you know, if anybody wants to reach out to you on social media, you know, Twitter, Instagram, what was the best place to reach out?
Yeah, Twitter, Instagram is just Craig McCreeth, just straight out. I don't really use Facebook. I don't know how it works at all. I don't understand it. I don't really understand.
Saskia, she's a big fan of
Facebook.
Yeah, I don't really understand social media. I don't really post anything. I'm more of an observer. I just have a little flick through and a little read. But yeah, if people want to talk about goalkeeping, I'm
awesome.
Yeah, I haven't charged my phone for 3 days, so feel free.
If you want to talk it quickly, call Craig. If you want to sit and listen for an hour, call Omar.
Oh no, Omar's got 100,000 more direct messages coming through right there.
You know, I love you, Omar.
Oh, I love you too. I'll forward all the messages I can answer. I'll forward them to you guys.
By the way, Craig, thanks for being a fan, by the way.
Absolutely.
It's awesome. Like I said, you know, this happens all the time. You know, I thought it was really funny. We were talking about the story earlier on, is that when
aren't you?
when you reached out and you were talking about, hey, I love the Aaron Naylor episode. You know, I'm definitely going to make sure to look out for the ways that she's standing tomorrow at the pitch. I was like, wait, who is this? I thought this was like a fan. And it's like, oh yeah, I'm also the goalkeeper coach at Reading FC.
Yeah.
You told me that. She's great.
Oh my gosh. All right. Remember, guys, contact at insidethe18media.com if you have a guest suggestion or a topic suggestion. And guys, if you're the goalkeeper coach at a professional team, just reach out to us and give us a topic suggestion. Honestly, anybody give us a topic suggestion. I'm digging a hole again, guys.
Yep.
At ProGK_Academy _ on Instagram, at Saskia_Weber on all social media platforms. I've got a case of the giggles at Goalkeeper Podcast for us. That's all the time on Inside the 18. We are out. Later, guys.